Dr. Michael Edwards was the chair of the surgery department here at UC Health for 11 years, but that all changed today when he was reassigned to a research program. This is a marijuana ticket for 100 grams or less. As of today, the city will no longer prosecute these tickets, but for people who received these tickets years ago, there is still a paper trail, and tonight some city council members tell me they're working on making this disappear.
Why is the criminal sexual conduct charges, why were they requested against you?
Because Channel 3 News is fake news. It's Walter Scamdolf.
Oh, okay.
What about the people, these victims that say that you took all this money away from them? It was two of the biggest tragedies here in Kalamazoo.
I do not have a comment. Again, my attorney will give a comment.
Do you feel sorry? There are 11 evictions per day in Cincinnati with a rate of 4.7. While that rate is lower than it was 5 years ago, it's still double the national average. So when you said back in 2015 you wanted 10,000 people out of poverty, 5 years, you didn't mean starting the clock then. You meant you had to get everything up running and then start the clock?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't go as fast as I would have liked in terms of starting, but I wasn't in charge.
A Local 12 investigation found apartments intended for long-term residents are being turned into full-time short-term rentals in one Cincinnati neighborhood.
It's happening at Current at the Banks, and people who live there say they're concerned about their safety. And city council members question if the move's even legal. Here's Walter Smith-Randolph.
Current at the Banks, next to Great American Ballpark, was built with long-term residents in mind. Barbara Smurder is one of the original residents. She's lived here for 7 years.
I didn't move here to live in a hotel, and that's what I feel like I'm living here now.
Longtime resident Scott Hickman feels the same way.
Because I don't know who I'm passing walking down the hallway. If it's someone that lives here, obviously I know that they're not just a random person who you don't know their background. Like the people that live here it's a community.
But anyone can be a part of the Current community, as long as you have an ID and a credit card.
Now we don't know who's coming in and out of our building, and it's kind of scary.
I mean, it's crazy.
Scott pays $1,700 a month for his apartment, but when we rented an apartment here for one night, it only cost us $200.
Well, if they can get it for $200, why aren't they staying at a hotel?
Our listing for a 2-bedroom apartment was posted by a host supposedly named Hannah Ewing, who claims to be a Cincinnati native. But Hannah's picture is a picture of a model named Jessica Clements. This 2017 Boston Globe article says Jessica is actually from Massachusetts. Our check-in instructions clearly stated this is a residential building and warned against contacting on-site staff. That comes with a $150 fee. But next to the Current on the Bank's name is a new name, The Guild, which advertises itself as a boutique hotel. Once you're inside, you have access to the same amenities long-term residents like Scott and Barbara pay top dollar for.
Right now it's touted, as you can see, luxury apartments. We don't feel like it's luxury apartments right now.
I don't know who's next door to me, which is concerning because who knows what kind of background checks they do. Like everyone that lives here, to my knowledge, has a credit check, a background check, but I don't know who these people are living here for 2 days at a time.
While Airbnb does verify your identification, there's no background check and no credit check. We went through the process to see what it's like. All it took was sending Airbnb our license and credit card information. So now we have the key fob. This key fob gives us access to the swimming pool, the fitness area, and everywhere else in this building. There's also this sign posted twice here that says any noise violations or disturbances will cost you a $500 fee.
And the one issue
Scott says there's been plenty of noise violations and he's concerned for his safety and security.
One morning I was woken up by police barricading into an apartment. And I don't know if that was a resident or if it was part of the Airbnb system. But that did happen.
Indeed, it did happen. Back in April, U.S. Marshals arrested Pierre Taylor, also known as Birdman, in an apartment here after he was indicted for allegedly distributing fentanyl and marijuana. It's unclear if Taylor was a permanent resident or renting for a few days. Police reports filed for the Current at the Bank's address list the building as a hotel. Cincinnati City Council member David Mann has worked on legislation to regulate these rentals.
When you're renting a unit regularly, it starts to become like a hotel. We want to make sure that it's safe. And thirdly, there was some concern in some neighborhoods that units that were available for permanent housing were being converted to daily turnover and taking away from our housing stock.
Mann also co-sponsored this city council motion to investigate the legality of Current at the Banks converting 70 units to short-term rentals. The motion also asked the city administration if Current at the Banks should pay a hotel tax. Mann points out the bank's developer received public support in the form of a 15-year tax abatement worth $12.9 million.
And we gave that public support because we expected to have residential units in an area that we want to attract additional residents. If some of those units are being used for overnight rental and we're getting a lot of transient traffic, that's very different than what we expected to achieve with our tax dollars.
It's also not what Scott and Barbara expected when they signed their lease. So now they both plan on finding a new place to live.
The apartment rentals and the Airbnb, among other reasons.
We just want our safety. I just want to be secure. I want to be happy.
We want something that's acting like a hotel to be regulated like a hotel.
Walter Smith Randolph, Local 12 News.
And we reached out to the Guild and Village Green, the management company for Current at the Banks. A representative said the Guild, the management company, and the investment company were all unavailable for comment.
Tonight we have a new batch of text messages between Cincinnati City Council's so-called Gang of Five. Walter Smith Randolph spent the night looking through the texts. And Walter, what did you find?
Well, Rob, Local 12 sued the city of Cincinnati after they denied a request to look at these messages surrounding the resignation of former city manager Harry Black. These messages give us an inside look at the workings of City Hall, how city council members discuss city business when they thought no one was looking. These text messages among 5 members of City Council give you a look behind the closed doors at City Hall. P.G. Sittenfeld, Chris Seelbach, Wendell Young, Tamaya Denard, and Greg Landsman all exchanging messages about personal affairs and city business. There's the innocent messages, like discussing Chris Seelbach's wedding plans and bachelor party. But there's also the nefarious, like Seelbach and Sittenfeld accusing Vice Mayor Chris Smitherman of using his dying wife as a political prop. Pamela Smitherman died of breast cancer in January. In another thread, Sittenfeld and Seelbach say council member Amy Murray lacks courage and an unwillingness to actually govern. The big takeaway, the Democratic Gang of Five discuss almost every major issue before city council meetings. This thread shows the strategy behind having a united front in the debate over the ousting of former city manager Harry Black. We should give John hell tomorrow, said Seelbach, referring to the mayor. Another thread shows Wendell Young accusing the mayor of lying, calling him Mini Trump. The messages also show some city council members thought the text thread might not be a good idea. Landsman saying, "We're coming close to opening ourselves up to a sunshine law issue." A very fair consideration, responds Sittenfeld. Now, we did reach out to all of the council members involved. Seelbach and Landsman declined to comment, while we didn't hear back from Sittenfeld, Denard, or Wendell Young. Rob. Branch County's chief prosecuting attorney will soon face a panel of his peers to learn his fate. Michigan's Attorney Grievance Commission filing 7 charges of misconduct against Ralph Kimball. This comes 6 months after the I-Team spoke with 2 women who say Kimball sexually harassed them while working at the courthouse.
He started talking about the size of his penis. As it continued to go on, I asked him to stop. He refused to stop.
He would constantly make comments about his penis and the size or his sexual relationship with his wife or lack thereof.
In this 14-page report, Kimball is accused of openly talking about his genitalia, calling himself Little Ralphie. In another account, Kimball allegedly offered to buy a female employee's underwear for $50. Kimball's alleged harassment didn't stop with courthouse workers. In count 5, Kimball is accused of trying to sleep with a crime victim, referring to her with words too vulgar to repeat. Kimball's discipline could range from reprimand to disbarment and the loss of his law license. When the I-Team caught up with Kimball back in February, he denied the allegations.
I have not threatened or been retaliated against anyone.
Why are all these women coming out of the woodwork to accuse you of sexual impropriety?
No further statement.
Why won't you return our phone calls?
Well,
why are women suing you for sexual harassment? Why is the criminal sexual conduct charges, why were they requested against you?
Because Channel 3 News is fake news. It's Walter Scamdolph.
Oh, okay.
Fighting an arson fire, the Hamilton Fire Department is releasing a report detailing exactly what went wrong.
But the head of the firefighters union says it leaves out key details that could prevent future deaths. Walter Smith Randolph is here now with this Local 12 exclusive. Walter.
Cami and Kyle, Local 12 Investigates has uncovered internal departmental emails accusing the Hamilton fire chief of omitting facts to save face. Tonight, the union president tells me the fire department needs to own what was removed from the report. Tony Harris was there the night Patrick Walterman died.
My role that night was driving engine 24.
Harris, president of Hamilton Professional Firefighters Union Local 20, also delivered the news to Walterman's widow.
I don't want to be standing on another person's porch telling their loved one that something's happened because I failed to speak up.
Which is why Harris wants to speak up about what he believes may have contributed to Walterman's death.
We don't get to hide from the truth and the facts. We have to face things head on so that it doesn't happen again.
Harris says this 63-page report omits some of the details. Emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates shows a deputy fire chief agrees. Released in March, the report attributes Walterman's December 2015 death on 5 contributing factors, including communication and mistakes made in the field. While staffing and response time were included in the additional findings portion of the report, Harris says the report doesn't own those issues.
The staffing number that we had that night is the staffing number that we have today, right now, 22 members on shift. Before the closures in 2013, we had 28 members working every day, so that was 2 more fire engines.
We asked Hamilton Fire Chief Mark Mercer for an on-camera interview. He said he would be happy to provide written replies to our written questions rather than sit down for an interview. When asked why personnel reductions were eliminated from the report, Mercer said in his written responses, the purpose of the report was to identify the factors that contributed to the fireground fatality, not an overall evaluation of fire department functions nor staffing. After the city shuttered a fire station in 2013 and reduced staff by 6 firefighters, Harris says response time doubled.
It went from 2 minutes and 59 seconds to 6 minutes and 23 seconds, and those were the things, that was one of the major things that was omitted from that.
Those exact response times are listed right here in the draft report. They're backed by a study that tested the response time to Patter Avenue 10 times prior to the closing of the fire station and 9 times after the station's closure. In his written response, Mercer said, during the review of the draft report, the discussion of response times could not be supported nor recreated. I don't doubt the effort that was put into it. However, I could not support the statements. Harris also takes issue with the final report listing response by mileage. He says the national standard is to list response by time.
We don't say there's a firehouse within 1.2 miles of your house. We say a fire truck can be at your door in 3 to 4 minutes.
This is the National Fire Prevention Association Standard 1710. It measures all response objectives by time and not mileage. It was created in 2001, 12 years before Walterman's death. Mercer says that the response time is one measure and cited the Insurance Services Office, which uses travel distance for measure. Harris says staffing was also an issue. Internal emails obtained by Local 12 Investigates show Harris is not the only person who expressed concerns about staffing issues. This email from Deputy Chief Thomas Eichelberger to Chief Mark Mercer in February 2018 says, I feel very strongly about including the details involving staffing level reductions that the department sustained during the city's budget reduction and how that may have had an impact that night. While the final report mentions staffing, it does not highlight how staffing levels affected response that night. The draft report, which we obtained through an open records request, included 2 pages of findings on staff level reductions.
Staffing and response times, I think those are direct correlation, and those are the changes that would cost the city more money.
Mercer said in his written responses, so what if Engine 27 were staffed with 3 firefighters and had been dispatched to the fire and had arrived 2 minutes earlier? Would that response time have made a difference in the incident? The answer is absolutely not.
Again, when we made the easy things that didn't cost as much money, and we didn't want to own the other issues that we have, that we continue to have.
Internal emails show Deputy Chief Eichelberger was also not satisfied with the final report. On September 11, 2018, he emailed Fire Administration saying, if we are not going to address the issues resulting from station truck closures, personnel reductions, and the resulting rat response from Engine 21 on the far west side, I cannot willingly place my name on the amended report. I feel as though we are intentionally omitting important information only to save face. Mercer responded to Eichelberger's email by saying, "We are not intentionally omitting any information to save face. I am actually a bit offended that you say that in that way." The report committee consisted of a 5-member team that did not respond to the Patter Avenue fire. While they signed the draft report, their names were removed from the final report. When we asked Mercer why those names were removed, he wrote, "Several members chose to remove themselves from the committee and to stop participating. Each had the opportunity to continue to participate and to sign the report. Their names were not removed. The choice was that of the members."
The public actually should be aware of it. And I know that city leadership and city council and people like they are aware of it also, but they have failed to face it head on. And that was our hope from this report.
We tried to talk to Deputy Chief Eichelberger regarding his concerns and the emails we just showed you. Chief Mercer told us, quote, he would be the sole spokesperson fulfilling the role of providing comment on the issue from the department. Coming up in part 2 of this story, we'll explore concerns about response times for key safety officials involved anytime a fire breaks out in the city of Hamilton. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Where are your keys right now, and how often do you just leave them out? Where are your keys right now, and how often do you just leave them out in the public, whether they're on your desk or on a public key ring? Chances are you do it all the time. But thanks to new technology, copying a key is easier than ever, and you might want to think twice before leaving your keys out in public. When you need a key made, you typically go see a master locksmith like Paul Bentley at Michigan Security and Lock.
There has been a trust in the past. Right. And the trust is that, you know, if you're in possession of the key, you should be the owner of it. But it's not, it's a different world now.
That different world is thanks to technology and new companies like Greg Marshall's. KeyMe allows anyone to make a copy of a key with just a few clicks.
And this is an industry that is one of the most fraudulent out there, that takes advantage of customers more so than almost any other industry. And we're trying to change all that and make it safer and cheaper and easier for customers.
Convenience comes at a cost. While KeyMe cuts out a visit to the locksmith, what happens if someone with bad intentions gets a hold of your keys? Could they break into your home?
I think that it's very, very possible. Just take a piece of white paper, go 4 inches away, take a picture of it, flip the key over, take another picture of it, send it off, and a couple days later you got a key to the guy's house.
The I-Team wanted to test our theory with News Channel 3 sports anchor Mike McCann's keys. We found Mike's keys out in the open while he was on assignment. With a few clicks, I made a copy of Mike's keys. So we were able to order the keys online, and they came in the mail overnight. And inside we have our 3 keys. So we're gonna head over to Mike's house and see if it works. It worked.
Hello.
Hey! How's it going, Mike?
How on earth?
How did it work?
Yeah.
You left your keys on your desk.
You stole my keys?
I didn't steal your keys. You left them on your desk. And I got an app that can make your keys.
Well, that's an interesting app. I really don't know what to say.
This is easier for you, but doesn't kind of
easier for everybody else too,
right?
Which is slightly terrifying that if you just leave your keys somewhere, someone can take a picture of them and immediately have access to your house.
KeyMe's founder acknowledges the possibility of this happening, but says
we've made millions and millions of keys. There's never been an incident aside from sort of the fabricated kind of media stories.
So what can you do to keep your keys safe? For starters, don't leave your key on a public key hook, whether it's at work or at the gym. You might also want to invest in a higher security key, like a restricted key.
A restricted key would be one that would have a very specific grooving to it. And that particular grooving would be one that would be controlled. And it's actually controlled by area. So we actually have, within a 100 miles radius, we have the control for this, so nobody else can get this key.
And lastly, take it from Mike.
I guess I won't be leaving my keys on my desk anymore.
Walter Smith Randolph, News Channel 3.